I got to get right into it today. We're in the middle of watching the greatest Shohei on earth, and it is Shohei Ohtani. It's unbelievable what this guy is doing and what he did last night. Home run, double, home run, double. Then they don't pitch to him. They put him on base. They intentionally walk him 5 straight times. The game goes 18 innings. The Dodgers win 6-5. We're in the middle of watching real history. We're in the middle of watching a real-life Babe Ruth. None of us, I don't believe any of us, were around when Babe Ruth was dominating Major League Baseball. We're in the middle of seeing our version of Babe Ruth, maybe a better version of Babe Ruth, and it's Shohei Ohtani. He does that last night. He's going to be the starting pitcher tonight. The Dodgers are in control of this series at 2-1. Shohei pitching tonight can extend this out to 3-1 and basically guarantee that the Dodgers repeat as World Series champions, as world champions. This is a historic, magical moment in baseball. We're witnesses to it. This is Tiger Woods at his zenith. This is Michael Jordan at his apex. This is Muhammad Ali in Zaire. This is incredible. It's the greatest Shohei on earth. But it's falling a tiny bit flat. And trust me, we'll all be tuned in tonight to see this man pitch and perform at the plate, be the designated hitter, the leadoff hitter for the Dodgers. I believe many of us will be tuned in, but we will not be tuned in the numbers we would, obviously, if it was an American-born superstar doing what Shohei Ohtani did last night. I got to admit, I was still far more into the Kansas City Chiefs and Monday Night Football. I'm glad there's no football competing with tonight, and I can just focus on Shohei Ohtani because I want to enjoy this moment, but I have to be real about this moment. That it's undermined a bit, quite a bit, because he's not an American-born athlete. And that's not some, what do they call it, xenophobia? That's not what I'm talking about. It's just, I don't know his backstory. And when we think about the all-time great athletes and the all-time great moments in sports, when we think about Michael Jordan, it's like we know his backstory. We feel like we know his parents. We were when his father died, we all mourned with Michael. His mother's role in his life. Think about Tiger Woods. We really knew Earl Woods. We really felt like we knew, I think her name is Tilda, Tiger's mom. They're at the events. We get connected to them. We know the whole backstory of Tiger Woods. What was it on the, it wasn't the Johnny Carson show. It was before, he's on as a 3 or 4-year-old swinging a golf club. We watched these guys, Tiger Woods and these guys, grow up. We felt connected to them in a way that we don't feel connected to Shohei Ohtani. And I don't think it's something we should apologize for, but it is something we should recognize, that the greatest show in sports is going on, and yes, we marvel at it, but we don't feel the personal connection. It's not an American story. And yes, he's doing this in America, but the man doesn't even speak English, or he certainly doesn't speak good English. This This isn't the same as Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Larry Bird, he's from French Lick, Indiana. The hick from French Lick. We watched him grow up and play at Indiana State. We watched Magic Johnson from the state of Michigan go to Michigan State. We know his college coach, Judd Heathcote. We know his college teammates. It feels like we watched Magic grow up right before our eyes. Shohei Ohtani just appears from out of nowhere. And he's this magnificent, he's possibly the greatest baseball player of all time. But we don't feel connected to him in a real way, and that undermines this story. When you think about Muhammad Ali and watching him as a young man in the Olympics. I think Muhammad Ali was in the Olympics. I know George Foreman was. Maybe I'm wrong but we remember Muhammad Ali as Cassius Clay and what he represented to the American narrative and what sports used to say about the American narrative. And unfortunately, and this is not a shot at Shohei, but what Shohei is saying about the American narrative is that it's weakening. That the greatest athletes don't live here. They weren't developed here. It's no different than Wembanyama in the NBA. It's a magnificent story, and Wembanyama seems to be headed towards like, holy cow, we've never seen this before. But he's not from here. We don't know his backstory. We'll never feel as connected to him as we did Lou Alcindor, as we did Bill Walton, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain. It will be magnificent and marvelous to watch. But just like Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's wonderful to watch. It's wonderful athleticism. Thank you, Hadley. And Muhammad Ali did win the 1960 gold medal. Thank you. But these NBA guys, Luka Doncic, they don't connect. They connect, but not connect the way an American athlete would, and what their dominance of American sports. Now we have the best player in baseball is a foreigner. The best player, hands down, unquestioned, Wembanyama is a foreigner. They're not going to connect the way that Tiger Woods connected. And so I'm going to watch tonight. And it'll be the first baseball game in years that I've made my primary focus. But it just won't feel the same. It'll actually be a reminder of like, hey, man, we're not as dominant as we used to be. So we'll get into it. We'll enjoy it. It should be special tonight when you're watching anybody. I mean, he's toppling American idols. He's toppling Babe Ruth and Barry Bonds and Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle and Joe DiMaggio. Shohei Ohtani is a story about the fall of American sports and really the fall of America. So we'll celebrate it and we'll enjoy it. But those of us of a certain background and a certain age, we'll have mixed feelings about, and there will be no hate of Shohei Ohtani, but it will not make us feel the way that Tiger Woods and Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Tom Brady. We won't be feeling that tonight. And so I'm going to bring Steve Kim in to discuss that. Before I do, I want to remind you all listening on Apple to make sure you hit that 5-star rating. We need it. It helps us fight the algorithms, helps us grow the channel. So if you're listening right now over Apple, stop what you're doing and hit that 5-star rating. Thank you. Also, I want to remind you all to thank our sponsor today that makes today's show even possible, and that is Relief Factor. Relief Factor is a 100% daily drug-free supplement that fights inflammation. Inflammation is the source of those aches and pains that are compromising your mobility and your life. Relief Factor fights inflammation. It is the key to good health. It's the key to being able to exercise and move around and do all the things you used to do when you're younger. They have a great 3-week quick start program that's just $20. For just $20, you can find out if you can get some relief from those aches and pains. The 3-week quick start, 70% of the people that try it circle back and re-up because they're already experiencing the benefits of Relief Factor. It's just $20 to find out if you can relieve some of that joint pains. I use it. It's helped me. It's why I've been able to exercise and work out so much. It's helped my buddy Jeffrey Steele. It's why he's able at 64 years old to bike 30 miles every morning. He's out there right now. You're sitting on your rear end listening to me. I'm sitting on my rear end talking to you. Jeffrey's out on a bike doing 30 miles right now, and he can do it because he takes Relief Factor every day. 2 ways to get it. Call 1-800-4-RELIEF. That's 1-800, the number 4-RELIEF. Or visit relieffactor.com. All right, let's bring in our main man, the Korean Cosell, Steve Kim, who played a little baseball in his youth. And obviously, the Korean Cosell is of the Asian persuasion. Not to say that he has anything in common with a Japanese person, but he's a baseball fan. He's Asian. Steve, were you caught up in this last night, or were you, like a lot of us, watching Monday Night Football? Big deal, little deal, no deal, what Shohei's doing?
Honestly, you're going to hate me for this. When that game was heading into its second game, that unscheduled doubleheader, I was rewatching the Miami-Stanford game. Honestly. I only get 12 of these a year. I wanted to see what's wrong with our offense. It was tied 7-7 at the half against Stanford. And I kind of wanted to review what's going on. That's it. It is what it is. Good game, though, I heard. Pretty dramatic.
So you're saying this is the man starts the game 4 for 4. Home run, double. They intentionally walk him 5 straight times. They're scared to death of him. He's the greatest baseball player, perhaps of all time. They play an 18-inning World Series game. This is one of the greatest games in World Series history. Does nothing for you, Steve?
Look, I played baseball my whole life to a point. I'm not really a baseball fan, but that being said, there is a real palpable Dodger buzz in L.A. It is. And they've actually taken over, and I never thought this would happen 10 to 15 years ago, and I think part of it has to do with LeBron James. The Dodgers are now the most popular team in L.A. I never would have imagined that during the Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Phil Jackson era, being dead serious, because they've been the most consistent winner, and also they have a large Mexican fan base. Now, this is interesting. There's now jokes going around. In about 10 to 15 years, you're going to see a lot of Mexican kids named Shohei. And it's interesting because the Dodgers have been the one franchise that we could always lean on for being pretty good, right? Now, this is where LA is a little bit different, Jason, because keep this in mind. For about 20 some odd years, we did not have the National Football League. So there's actually a lost generation of NFL fans who have no loyalty, certainly to San Diego, now LA Chargers, or the Rams. And if you actually look at SoFi Stadium, there's videos of this. Every one of their games is almost like a neutral site game. It really is. A lot of visiting fans. And when the Niners come to town, Jason, it's the Red Sea. It's noticeable. But the Dodgers are the one thing, and there is actually this, we have a pretty sizable Japanese contingent in our city. There's actually a J-Town that really matters. People come in. I've heard of stories, and Mario Lopez tells me, he sits next to Japanese tourists that literally fly in on their private jets to watch Shohei, and then they leave the next day. So it's a thing. So though there is Dodger fever in the city. Now, nationally, Jason, be honest, how many people that aren't really covering sports had the luxury of watching that game all the way up to 1:30, 2 o'clock at night, Eastern time, you think?
Not many. I mean but let me ask you not many, but let me ask you a different question, or off my mono or start of the show. If this were an American-born Japanese baseball player doing this, and I know you're the weird person that didn't get caught up in Tiger Woods mania.
No.
That's fascinating me. Because Tiger Woods speaks.
Why would I though?
Because it's a fascinating story. It's not because of the Asian angle, just because this isn't a kid that, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old phenomenon that actually came true and challenged this historical mark that Jack Nicklaus had set standard. It's just an amazing story. As much as sports are about the athletic feats, it's also just about the narrative and the story and what the athlete represents and what the athlete says about America. And I think Shohei actually says a lot about America in terms of the fall of America. America has always prided itself on being the world-class athletes, the hub of sports, and that is diminishing.
You call it the fall of American sports. I could look at it a different way, and I could say it's the ascension of the foreign-born athlete and the globalization of sports overall. I mean, think about it, Jason. When we were growing up in the 80s, there was a period of time when it was absolutely unfathomable that we would ever lose in basketball to another country, even in the Olympics, right? And coming off that 84 Olympic team with Jordan, Ewing, Chris Mullin, you thought, oh, God, this is our birthright to see Americans win the gold medal. Jason, by 1988, I think we were winning the bronze. I think Russia beat us in Seoul, Korea. And also, I can relate this to boxing. There was a time for about 100 years, the American heavyweight was the most dominant one.
Yes.
All right? And basically, it was going to be the black athlete. But certain things happened. The black athletes got more opportunities with football and basketball. So then all of a sudden, that talent base shrunk to a point now. Jason, I'll be dead honest. I don't see a good American heavyweight. Right now, I don't. Riddick Bowe ain't walking through that door.
Deontay Wilder ain't walking through that door.
Deontay Wilder's not walking through that door. Greg Page ain't walking through that door. And I'm thinking, where have you gone, Larry Holmes? So there's a lot of factors. But even in basketball, let's go there. Most of your good players, by percentage, are still American and black, right? Now, maybe the most dominant ones, maybe they're no longer 10 out of 10, and maybe it's only 4 out of 10, right? But if you actually look at the makeup of that league, it is still largely dominated by American-born black players, is it not?
Yes, but that is lessening, but yes.
Okay. So when it comes to Shohei, there is a novelty factor to it, okay? And I can go all the way back. It was a much more of a novelty when Hideo Nomo, it was the summer of 1995. Now, that was different. Now, there was actually Nomo mania. That was a real thing. And I'll tell you why, Jason. There had not been a foreign-born Asian player of note ever. I think there had been a utility man that played for the Giants in the late 60s. And I think Len Sakata was Hawaiian-born, right? But a guy that was truly a star, even before Suzuki, Ichiro, it was Hideo Nomo. Now, that was a thing. That was like the Asian version of Fernando Mania. But now, if you go back from 95 all the way to now, that's 30 years, right? Been a lot of Asian players. Seriously, so the novelty in itself is kind of wore out in terms of that particular dynamic.
It's fascinating what you're saying, because Ichiro was dang near, or maybe just as popular as Shohei. And didn't Ichiro get the hits record? Or
well, he got a lot of hits. Remember, he was a little bit older for a rookie, but he's right off the bat. And remember, though, he was in Seattle, so the media markets were not quite the same.
Yeah,
you're stuck out there in the Northwest, not exactly a glamour team. And he was this curiosity. I remember there was a lot of doubt about how good could this guy be. There was actually major leagues who said this guy's going to be an average player at our level. And then immediately those players had to step back and bow down. Now, the thing was, though, I don't think he was ever a national superstar. Now, Shohei, by today's standards of baseball, which is no longer the national pastime, it is football. He is, I don't want to say it's different than Barry Bonds, and I'll tell you why. Because half the country hated Barry for whatever reason, so it's a little bit different.
You know what's, and don't have a lot of time, but you made me think about the media has been so fractured in lessened in impact that the media, there's no Sports Illustrated to put Shohei on the cover of and make everybody pay attention to him.
Yes.
There's no broadcaster or show at ESPN that you could hype him up with a nickname and constant conversation with. ESPN doesn't have that star-making ability that it used to have. Jason,
I think there's just the irony about sports coverage nowadays with social media. You tie that all in, right? And with the explosion of cable networks and streaming services and YouTube, the coverage is now 1,000 miles wide but an inch deep. In other words, we don't all converge in one pool. I remember growing up, even before SportsCenter, you know how a baseball star was really created nationally? Two ways. There was the NBC Game of the Week with Tony Kubek and Gary Jola. So, and because there wasn't 5,800 channels, you had to watch that game on a Saturday to watch an out-of-market player. Then you had a little bit of ABC's Monday Night Baseball. That got an audience. But the one show that I know every big baseball fan had to watch, and I grew up on it, Mel Allen, This Week in Baseball. So then you're like, okay, and it's really interesting that when you had less choices, it actually created bigger audiences, because if you look at television ratings, say 40 years ago, the last episode of MASH, All in the Family, or any great drama, or Dallas, they would get 10, 20, 30 million viewers, right? Nowadays, a highly rated show gets a fraction of that. And it's also mirrored in the 1998 Michael Jordan last shot against Utah. I believe that had an audience of 38 million. Jason, I don't think a 7-game series gets a total of 50 million nowadays. So I think the way you even value or gauge impact is different. And I think a lot of that has to do is we have so many other entertainment options.
Yeah, we certainly have, and I would say too many. Because, man, the more I just think about this, there is no gathering spot for sports fans. It's not the Pat McAfee show. There's not even a Joe Rogan of sports. And so it's much harder to make a star. Because, again, when you and I were growing up, on Thursdays, we go to the mailbox and Sports Illustrated was there. And we had something in common to talk about. If you had a friend in another city or anywhere, it's like, man, Sports, did you read the story on Walter Payton? And we don't, I don't know Shohei's backstory, and I'm sure there have been marvelous pieces written about it, but they didn't come up. They were either hidden behind a paywall that I hadn't paid for, or I just never heard about it. Steve, I gotta go. We gotta get to Danny Kanell. Welcome back to the show. I want to start with Shohei Ohtani. Steve Kim didn't watch, didn't have an interest in it. Kind of weird for a sports fan, particularly someone that grew up playing baseball, particularly someone who's Asian, but Steve's a different dude. How big of a story is this Shohei Ohtani? I think he's he's not an American, he's not the greatest American athlete, but he's America's greatest athlete going right now. Am I making too much of this?
No, I think he's the greatest athlete that I've witnessed maybe in my lifetime, and that includes Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and Tom Brady, because of the uniqueness of what he's doing. The final game of the championship series, when he had 3 home runs, and he also pitched 5 innings, he struck out 10. There were some stats on that are pretty incredible, because the amount of players in the postseason that hit 3 home runs in a game was about 20. I don't know the exact number, but it was about 20 players. And so there were only 20 players that accomplished that. The number of players that had pitched and had 10 strikeouts or more in the postseason was a very small number as well. And yet he did them both on the same night. And that was before what we watched unfold last night. To your question, though, I feel bad, although I do host a radio show that starts at 6 a.m. I watched the early portion of the game. I was not up at 3 a.m. when it finished, but I did catch the highlights. And the stuff where you see him getting walked 5 times, like, I was a really good Little League player. Like people still, when I go around here in South Florida and I go against, I was at an event the other night and I saw some guy that I played Little League baseball. He like remembered me as a Little League baseball player because I used to do stuff that, like, and I think that goes for a lot of guys that were just like the guy in Little League. And it was not that uncommon to see somebody hit 3 home runs and to strike out, 12 guys. Shohei Ohtani is doing this in the big leagues, like the stuff that guys do that dominate the Little League baseball scene. Like, it's just remarkable to see what he's doing and to be able to do it on, as a position player and as a pitcher. It's incredible. And I was listening to a little bit of you and Steve because I feel the same way you do, that I don't think we're appreciating him in America. And we definitely weren't before this playoffs. Like, everyone was kind of aware of how good he was, but he's dominating a sport. He's doing it in a way that should be getting the same amount of attention as Tiger did when he was dominating golf, as Jordan was, as Brady was, as any of the greats. And I bet if you lined up at a football stadium, whether it was NFL or college football on a Saturday or Sunday, and you asked a large amount of people who Shohei Ohtani was or what position he played or what team he was on, but there'd be a significant portion that would not know, which is kind of crazy.
Oh, I think he could show up. Let's say he came to Vanderbilt for game day.
Yeah, the Missouri game this past weekend. Yeah, football game.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of fans would even know who he is. There's a tall Asian guy over there, and they'd have to go, who?
More people would gravitate towards Johnny Manziel.
They gravitate toward Pat McAfee before him. I mean, it's just a punter, an NFL punter, which is. But I do think if he were born here in America and still Asian, I think it would be a bigger story.
I totally agree. First of all, there is a language barrier, right? His English isn't great, so we can't hear him communicate, so we can't relate to that and hear his storytelling ability. Like, we just don't know. I don't know what high school he went to. I don't know. I think I've read about his wife, who is a basketball player. Like, I kind of know that, but I don't know that much about her either. I don't know if they have children. I don't know how long they've been dating. I don't know anything about his childhood. I don't know if he was a prodigy in Japan. I'm assuming he was. Like, I don't even know that much about his professional career in Japan. But yet I know Bryce Harper was from Las Vegas, and I know he entered, he became a professional athlete at 17 because he wanted to be on this straight path to the Major League Baseball scene. Like, I know more about him than I do about Shohei Ohtani, and he's a great player, and he's one of the best in Major League Baseball, but I know more about him, and I think more American fans, baseball fans, would know more about Bryce Harper because he's been covered more from a young age. We just know more of their story. So I think it does. I think we're overlooking and not appreciating Shohei Ohtani for the greatness that we're watching.
So, Danny, I believe you were drafted by the Yankees out of Florida State. And so you can help me as a high-level football player, high-level baseball player. I never, other than backyard baseball, I never played baseball. It just wasn't my thing. As an athlete, we have a bias, I think, here in America. When we think of great athletes, we don't think of baseball. We think of football and basketball. Tell me why I should think that Shohei Ohtani and what he's doing in baseball is just as great an athletic feat as you said, hey, maybe even Michael Jordan. Why should I believe that? What to me, it felt like when I was in high school that, guys that couldn't play a drip of football or basketball were on the baseball team. And so I always thought of them as inferior athletes. But help me understand.